The stock price of Starbucks is collapsing due to some big issues they're having at the corporate level. Most notably, people have stopped coming to Starbucks, with the company posting their first sales drop since 2020. Transactions declined in every region, with Starbucks reporting what's perhaps the worst set of results of any large company so far in this earnings season. And the reason that's happening is because there is a big issue going on with the US consumer, everyone. Consumers in America are finally starting to break. And what do when they start to break? Well, they don't buy the $7 latte at Starbucks. With Starbucks CEO Laxman Narasimhan stating in their most recent earnings call that we as Starbucks continue to feel the impact of a more cautious consumer, as well as a deteriorating economic outlook that has weighed on customer traffic, and impact felt broadly across the industry. And those are some ominous words from Starbucks CEO, a CEO that has a pay package that could be worth up to $28 million a year. And he's saying actually that this isn't just a Starbucks issue in terms of declining customer traffic, declining revenue. He's saying that this is something being felt across the fast food and fast casual dining and beverage industry. And he's right, everyone, because you can see Starbucks, they reported a 3% decline in same-store sales in the first quarter of 2024, which is minus 6.5% adjusted for inflation. That was a very bad reading. It's why their stock price is crashing. It's why they're getting downgraded. But if you look, also other fast food and fast casual companies like McDonald's, KFC, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, Wendy's, and Chipotle, they also reported big issues this quarter, reporting minus 1% same-store sales on average, minus 4.5% adjusted for inflation. So pretty much all of these companies, all of these fast food companies in America, they're trending negatively. They're losing customers. They're losing revenue. And a lot of you, I think, all know this, who watch my channel, you know intuitively that this economy and the cost of things ran out of control and wasn't sustainable. Well, now we're seeing it confirmed by these earnings reports. That's what these earnings reports are doing, everyone, and why they're so important for you to pay attention to as someone who's trying to understand the economy and maybe try to project where the stock market's going to head in the future, the housing market. Understand that these corporate earnings are a real-time live view into the financial health of US companies. And when we see such a large swath of iconic American brands reporting revenue declines year over year, it's a signal that the economy is not healthy. With CNBC reporting that the long-predicted consumer pullback finally hits restaurants like Starbucks, KFC, and McDonald's. For months, economists have been predicting that consumers would cut back on their spending in response to higher prices and interest rates, but it's taken a while for fast food chains to see their sales actually shrink. Now, interestingly, many of these companies offered up excuses for why this happened. Starbucks said that bad weather dragged down its same-store sales, which is a humorous response. Yum Brands, the parent company of Pizza Hut, KFC, and Taco Bell, blamed January's snowstorms and tough comparisons to a strong first quarter last year for the poor performance. But ultimately, those excuses don't fully explain the weak quarterly results. Instead, it looks like the competition for a smaller pool of customers has grown fiercer as the diners still looking to buy a burger or cold brew become pickier with their cash. And that's the ultimate takeaway here. There's two things going on. Number one, consumers are getting stretched. Consumers are running out of money. They're cutting back. And as consumers cut back, that's going to slow the economy and ultimately, potentially, result in layoffs and a downturn in the stock and housing market. However, on the other side of the equation, we also have increased competition. We have lots and lots of fast food chains. We have lots and lots of coffee shops that continue opening across America, even in the midst of this downturn in consumer spending that's starting to play out. So even if consumer spending were to just stay flat and stay stagnant, we would still see many of these companies have issues because there's just so much competition. There's particular competition in the coffee shop space, everyone. I want you to take a look at this graph. This graph is showing the rate of growth in coffee shops in America since 2011. And this data comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They actually track this, believe it or not. And the growth rate in coffee shops has surged up to 73% over the last 11 to 12 years. Meanwhile, the broader growth rate in food service and accommodation restaurants is only 26%. So the growth rate in coffee shops is 3 times higher than the growth rate in overall food and beverage service. And so think about what that means for Starbucks and their $7 lattes. No longer is Starbucks the main dog in town like they were 10 to 15 years ago. There was a Starbucks on every block. If you worked a corporate job, you went to Starbucks. There was really no questions about it. Well, now things are different. People instead are opting for, the local coffee shop with character and charm to spend $6 or $7 on a latte, where they can actually get like an experience. Maybe they bring a book, they bring some work, they like hanging out there for a couple hours. Starbucks doesn't really offer that experience anymore. In fact, Starbucks is almost doing the exact opposite. They're starting to cater their business not to people who kind of come in the store normally and order and want to hang around. Instead, Starbucks increasingly is doing drive-through orders and doing mobile app orders, something that's starting to deteriorate their customer service for people who come normally into the store and want to buy a drink. And this article from Axios is talking about this. They're saying that Starbucks is struggling to meet morning demand. And here they show a graph of Starbucks share price, which you could just see the huge crash after their earnings report. But they're saying that maybe one of the reasons also Starbucks is struggling is because Starbucks noticed in the last quarter that during its peak time, the rate of orders started on its app that were actually completed was in the mid-teens. And I actually think Axios has this wrong. It should be incompleted was in the mid-teens. In other words, a lot of would-be customers are starting orders on their app but walking away, citing long wait times or product unavailability. And this is something I'm personally noticing more and more if I go to Starbucks or maybe go to Cava or any of these like fast casual dining establishments, even Chipotle sometimes, is that the waits are just getting crazy, crazy long because they're catering their business to mobile app orders as well as DoorDash and Grubhub. And just if you go there normally to try to order something, you're waiting for 15 or 20 minutes. And I think this could be also something that's weighing down some of these fast casual dining restaurants, because in addition to it no longer being affordable to go to many of them, it's no longer fast. And so if it's no longer affordable and no longer fast, no wonder people are going to stop coming. And in particular, everyone, Starbucks noted that in North America in the first quarter of 2024, they had a 7% decline in transactions. A 7% decline in transactions. I want you to think about that, everyone. So 7% fewer transactions. I mean, that's millions of fewer transactions at Starbucks in the quarter, while their store count grew by 3%. So they grew their store count 3%, more stores, more opportunity for transactions, but the actual volume was down 7%, while their prices were still up 4%. So net, their comparable store sales went down minus 3% after going up 12% last year. And so this is also very interesting. Big decline in transactions, but Starbucks is not reducing prices, at least not yet. And this is the other really interesting thing about what's going on in the food industry in America is these outlets are really like trying not to reduce prices at all costs. Like they're still trying to pass off the inflation to the consumer. They're still trying to jack up the prices even when they see the customer traffic going down. And that's going to be a tough combination for them to pull off. Because I think what Americans and consumers are showing right now is that they've had it with the sky high prices. And if you're not going to try to work with Americans and consumers on making things more affordable or at least stop increasing the prices, they're going to walk away and they're going to eat at home or go someplace else or just cut back in general. Folks, I want you to take a look at this. This is a Starbucks menu for Starbucks in Knoxville, Tennessee. I kind of just picked a random one. And, let's just take a look at how much these drinks cost. If we look here, they have all these kind of crazy ones like iced brown sugar, oat milk shake, and espresso. It's almost like they're adding new words and adjectives every single day to these drinks to try to make them appear different and attract people. Well, this is $6.55 for what essentially seems like a dessert for breakfast, a dessert beverage for breakfast. $6.55. Caramel ribbon crunch frappuccino blended beverage, $6.95. That's a 91% like rating. I guess people are liking this even though it's $7. Then we have iced shaken espresso, $4.75. Okay, this is a more straightforward drink, $4.75. Again, you're going to have to add tax to that. And then, of course, they're going to ask you for the optional tip when you're leaving. Starbucks cold brew coffee, basic cold brew coffee, $5.15, everyone. Come on. And then when we get to the lattes, they range anywhere from $4.95 to $5.95 or $6.15. And so this is a big problem, everyone, for Starbucks. $5, $6, $7 for these kind of crazy drinks that are premium beverages that are very often not healthy. No wonder people are cutting back on it. And you guys can let me know, like if you go to Starbucks or you go to other coffee shops and you spend a lot of money on coffee. I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the comments section below about this. Me personally, I actually stopped drinking coffee 5 years ago. 5 years ago, more or less, was when I left my old corporate real estate job. And it was amazing to me. As soon as I kind of got out of the structure of a corporate work environment where I had to be in the same location every day at a certain time and then be there for 8 or 9 hours, as soon as I got out of that environment, I no longer had the desire to go to Starbucks or even drink coffee. I really don't drink any caffeine in general. Now, of course, I know I'm a rarity. Most Americans love drinking caffeine, but I think that there's a certain aspect to it which is just purely based out of like routine and almost boredom. Like people have their commute to their job, they don't like their job. Let's just get a cup of coffee to help me get through the day. I think ultimately that's like a big thing that Starbucks is relying on with their business model. And I think it worked for a long time. But now that the prices of these drinks are surging, now that consumers are starting to run out of money, I think the business model is starting to break. And this is something actually that Wall Street has seen coming for a little while. Because while Starbucks stock price is down 17, 18% over the last couple days, it's actually performed very poorly over the last 5 years. You can see over the last 5 years, Starbucks stock price is down 5.7% going back to 2019. And so Starbucks stock is down the last 5 years, while the broader S&P 500 is up 70%. And so this is signaling, that Wall Street was already identifying that there were some issues with Starbucks business model. Perhaps there's too many stores, perhaps there's too much competition, perhaps it's too expensive, consumers are pulling back. A combination of all those things is starting to make one of America's most iconic brands less iconic. But really, the broader takeaway I have from this story, everyone, on Starbucks is what it means for the macroeconomy and the consumer. Because I think we are finally starting to see the consumers go on strike. The American people finally starting to cut back with their spending. And this is a huge shift potentially in the economy. Because there's lots of people who are trying to tell you right now that the economy is strong and it's robust and it's going to keep growing and the stock market's going to keep going up and the housing market's going to keep going up. Well, folks, if that's the case and that's the true narrative, well, then why are America's biggest brands in food service reporting such big issues? That wouldn't be happening in a strong economy. And I fear this could be just the start of what we're going to see through the rest of 2024. And so if you want to track more of this data and more of these corporate earnings profiles as they come out so you know what's going on in the economy, hit that subscribe button. Turn on those notifications. I have 2 videos a week for you guys covering these topics as well as housing market data. You're going to want to stay informed because there's big shifts happening right now.